The studio lights blazed overhead, bathing the set of the Kelly Clarkson Show in a warm glow. The audience buzzed with anticipation, their excitement filling the air as Kelly Clarkson leaned forward with her trademark Texas charm. Across from her sat country music legend, Tim McGraw, dressed sharp in a black blazer and his signature cowboy hat. He carried himself with quiet confidence. His latest album had just dropped, and the segment was meant to be a celebration, music, life, and the road ahead. But underneath the smiles, something restless lingered. "Tim, it's so good to have you here," Kelly said brightly, her enthusiasm infectious. "This new album, it's raw, it's real, it's got people talking. What's the story behind it?" The crowd cheered as Tim tipped his hat with a small smile. He spoke of late-night writing sessions, the songs pouring out of him after years on the road. But his tone was clipped, measured, as though he were keeping something locked away. Kelly pressed on, as only she could, drawing him out with her easy warmth. "You've collaborated with a lot of younger artists lately. How do you feel about where country music is headed?" That's when his voice sharpened. "I'm not here to chase trends," Tim said firmly. "I make music for people who get it, not for folks scrolling their phones, looking for the next viral hit." The audience chuckled, mistaking it for a playful jab. But Kelly's smile faltered, just for a heartbeat. She sensed the edge beneath his words. She pivoted quick on her feet. "Okay, fair enough. But some of these new artists are shaking things up. That duet you did, it's blowing up online. Fans love it." Tim shifted, his jaw tight. "Fans eat up a lot of things," he muttered, his tone cutting against the room's energy. The laughter faded into a hush. Kelly tried again, steering toward safer ground. "So, tell me about the tour plans." Tim cut her off. "Look, Kelly, I'm not here to talk about what's trending on some app. I'm here to talk about the music. Can we do that?" The room went still, the kind of silence that presses down like a held breath. Kelly kept her smile, though her eyes flickered. She nodded, leaning back slightly. "All right, then. Let's talk music. You've called this your most personal album yet. What makes it so special to you?" Tim's hands gripped the chair, knuckles white against the dark fabric. He glanced at the audience, then back at Kelly. For a moment, it seemed he might soften. "This album," he said slowly, voice low, almost gravelly. "It's about the things that matter. Family, struggle, the stuff that keeps you up at night, not the noise out there." A few claps echoed, but the energy was off, the crowd unsure where to land. Kelly leaned forward, her tone gentle. "Your songs have always had that soul, that real-life connection. Is there a track that's especially close to your heart?" Tim's jaw worked, as though chewing bitterness. "They're all close, but people don't get it. They're too busy chasing clicks, chasing drama. Nobody listens anymore. They just want a story to sell." The words hit hard, hanging in the air. Kelly's brow furrowed. She'd handled difficult guests before, but this was different. Personal. "Well, we're listening now," she said evenly, her voice warm but steady. "Take us inside one of those songs." Tim leaned back, arms crossed. A humorless laugh escaped him. "You want me to spill my guts for the cameras? For the headlines? That's not how this works, Kelly." The audience stirred, whispers rippling through the silence. Kelly's smile tightened, but she didn't break. "I'm not asking for headlines, Tim," she said softly. "I'm asking for you. Your fans want to know what drives you. What makes this album different?" Something flickered in his eyes. Anger, maybe, or hurt. His voice dropped. You think it's about the fans? Half of them don't even buy records anymore. They just want a clip to share, something that makes them feel like they know me. The air in the studio grew thick. Off stage, a producer gestured to wrap it up. But Kelly didn't move. Instead, she leaned closer, her voice low, steady, almost like an olive branch. I get it, Tim. The industry's changed, and it's tough, Kelly said, her voice steady, almost pleading. But you're still out here making music that matters. Why not share that with us? Why not let us in? It was genuine, honest. But Tim's expression hardened. He leaned forward, his voice slicing through the tension. Because some things aren't for sale, Kelly. Not everything's a performance. The words hung heavy, final. For the first time, the audience understood this wasn't just an interview drifting off script. Something deeper was breaking open. The light seemed harsher, the air colder. Kelly sat back, her hands clasped in her lap, her face composed, but tight. She'd weathered tense moments before, but this wasn't the usual talk show sparring. Tim's words weren't just sharp. They were personal. They cut. The producers hovered, ready to force a commercial break. But Kelly gave a subtle shake of her head. Not yet. She wasn't going to let this moment slip away. Tim, she said, her voice low but firm. I hear you. Not everything's a performance. But you came here because you do have something to share. So tell me, what's the one thing you want people to take away from this album? A lifeline, an opening. Tim leaned back, the brim of his hat shadowing his eyes. He exhaled slowly, weighing whether to retreat or dig deeper. You know what I want them to take away? He said finally, voice heavy with weariness. I want them to stop turning everything into a circus. Music used to mean something. Used to be about the story, the feeling. Now it's just content, just another scroll. I'm tired of it, Kelly. I'm tired of playing the game. Murmurs rippled through the audience. No clapping, no laughter. Just unease. Kelly's eyes softened, though a spark of defiance flickered behind them. I get that. The industry can feel like a machine, chewing up what's real and spitting out noise. But you're still here, still pouring yourself into the music. That's not playing the game, Tim. That's fighting it. Her words carried sincerity, a bridge from her own battles. But Tim only shook his head, a bitter smile curving his lips. Fighting it? His voice rose, sharp enough to cut. You think this is fighting it? Sitting under these lights, answering the same questions, smiling for the cameras? This is the game, Kelly. And you... He jabbed a finger toward her. You're one of the best players, the audience gasped. The words hit like a slap. For the first time, Kelly had no comeback, no warm laugh to soften the blow. Her eyes locked on Tim's, unflinching. That's not fair, she said at last, calm but resolute. I'm here because I love music, same as you. I'm not your enemy. The silence that followed was suffocating. Every cough, every shuffle of a chair seemed amplified. Tim stared at her, unreadable. Then, abruptly, he pushed back his chair. The scrape of metal on stage floor like a gunshot. Maybe not, he muttered. But I'm done with this. And with that, he stood and walked off, boots thudding across the polished floor. The audience sat frozen, eyes darting between the empty chair and Kelly, who remained under the glaring lights, motionless. The echo of his boots faded. The silence didn't. Kelly's face was a mask, lips pressed thin, hands still clasped. Offstage, producers frantically signaled for a commercial. But Kelly held still, breathing deeply before turning back to the stunned audience. "Well, folks," she said at last, her voice quieter than usual, steady but fragile. "That was unexpected." A few nervous laughs trickled out, but most sat in stunned silence. "This show is about real conversations, real moments," Kelly continued. "Sometimes those moments get messy, and that's okay." Behind the cameras, chaos brewed. Producers whispered into headsets, the director replaying the meltdown frame by frame, searching for the spark. Social media was already exploding, clips flooding feeds, hashtags multiplying like wildfire. Tim's walk-off wasn't just a moment. It was history, captured live. And Kelly Clarkson was left alone on stage, holding the weight of it. Kelly, unaware of the storm already brewing online, pushed forward. "Let's take a quick break," she said, her smile widening just enough to reassure the audience. "When we come back, we've got more to talk about. And I promise it's going to be good." The applause was hesitant, uneven, but it came. The screen faded to commercial. As soon as the cameras cut, Kelly's shoulders dropped. She pressed a hand to her forehead, exhaling hard. Her assistant rushed in with a water bottle, but Kelly waved it off, her eyes still fixed on the empty space where Tim had walked out. Backstage, Tim hadn't gone far. He lingered in a shadowed hallway, hat low, hands jammed in his pockets. His manager, wiry, clipboard in hand, frown permanently etched into his face, was already there, hissing in urgent tones. "Tim, we've got to get ahead of this. People are going to talk. We can spin it. Say you weren't feeling well." Tim stayed silent, staring at the floor, jaw tight. The manager pressed. "You walk off like that, it's a headline. You know how this works." Tim's head snapped, up his eyes sharp. "Let it be a headline," he said, voice flat but iron strong. "I'm not apologizing for telling the truth." The manager dragged a hand down his face, muttering. But before he could answer, a stagehand approached nervously. "Mr. McGraw, Kelly's team is asking if you'll come back out. They'll rework the segment. Keep it about the music." Tim's eyes flickered. A flash of regret, swallowed quickly by defiance. He shook his head, slow and final. "I'm done here." He turned toward the exit, boots echoing against the concrete floor, each step carrying a finality that silenced argument. The stagehand hesitated, then hurried back to the set, where Kelly was steeling herself to face the cameras again alone. The commercial break ended. The audience shuffled in their seats, whispers rippling. Kelly walked to center stage. The lights caught the flicker of determination in her eyes. She'd had 2 minutes to shake off the sting, to breathe through the weight of his words. Now she faced the cameras with renewed resolve. "All right, y'all," she said, her warmth still there, though tempered now, grounded. "We had a bit of a curveball just now, didn't we?" A soft ripple of laughter, a release valve for the tension. Kelly smiled, worn but genuine. Tim's got a lot on his mind. Sometimes that's just how it goes. This show's about honesty, about showing up as you are. So let's keep that going. She leaned in, crossing her legs, drawing the room closer. "Let's talk about music, about what it means to pour your soul into something and put it out. There for the world." The audience leaned forward, caught by the pivot, chaos turning into connection. Kelly spoke openly about her own journey, the highs, the heartbreak, the pressure of staying relevant in a world obsessed with the next big thing. She never said Tim's name, but his shadow loomed large. His words about the circus of fame lingered. In hers, "You put your heart out there," Kelly said, voice steady but edged with emotion. And sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it's not what people expect. But that's what makes it worth doing. This time the applause came fast, rising, loud, rallying behind her. Backstage, the mood soured. Tim's manager paced the green. Room, phone glued to his ear, juggling calls from publicists and journalists, already circling like vultures. Clips were spreading online, frame-by-frame breakdowns, headlines screaming about a feud, a meltdown. In the parking lot, Tim slid into his SUV. The cool night air clung to him as he gripped the wheel, staring at the dashboard. His phone buzzed, non-stop in his pocket. He ignored it. The weight of what had happened pressed against him. Not regret, not exactly, but the heavy awareness of a line crossed. He thought about the album he'd come to promote, the one he had poured himself into. He thought about Kelly, the flash of hurt in her eyes when he'd called her out. It hadn't been personal, but it had felt personal. As the studio lights faded in his rearview, he wondered if he'd just started a storm he couldn't stop. Inside, Kelly finished the show. She powered through, her charisma smoothing the edges of the night. The young pop artist who followed Tim bounded onto the stage. Pure energy, all smiles. The audience roared, grateful for the lift. But Kelly's mind drifted just for a second, back to that empty chair, back to the words that still lingered in the air, her. Producer caught her eye from the wings and gave a small, respectful nod. She'd saved the show, turned a disaster into something raw, something human. But it had cost her something, too. Kelly matched their enthusiasm, laughing, singing along, her voice bright as ever. But those closest to her noticed the faint strain behind her eyes. When the cameras cut, her hands fidgeted in her lap, restless. As the show wrapped, she thanked the audience with her trademark warmth. Yet the instant the lights dimmed, her smile faltered. Backstage, her assistant handed her a phone, already buzzing with clips of Tim's exit, headlines screaming, comment sections divided. Kelly scanned a few, then pushed the device aside. "Not now," she whispered, heading for her dressing room. The internet, of course, erupted. Fans praised Tim's raw honesty. Others mocked him for throwing a tantrum. Kelly's defenders lauded her grace. Critics accused her of pressing too hard. The truth, as always, was messier than the headlines. Alone in front of her mirror, Kelly stared at her reflection. She wasn't angry, just tired. Tired of balancing on the tightrope between authenticity and performance. The same one Tim had railed against. She understood him more than she wanted to admit. Miles away, Tim pulled into a quiet diner, the kind of place he used to haunt before every meal became a photo op. He slid into a booth, ordered black coffee, and pulled his hat low. The waitress didn't recognize him, and for the first time all day, he exhaled. He thought about the songs he had written, the ones he had meant to share on Kelly's stage. Instead, he'd let the frustration boil over. He wasn't proud, but he wasn't sorry either. When the steaming mug arrived, he wrapped his hands around it, staring into the dark liquid like it might give him answers. By the time Kelly left the studio, the sun was setting, shadows stretching long across the lot. Her team had already drafted a statement, neutral, polished, forgettable. She hadn't signed off. Sitting in her car, the quiet pressed in. For a moment she considered calling Tim, not for damage control, not for PR, but to talk, artist to artist. She didn't. Some things needed space. On the drive home, the radio queued up one of Tim's new songs. The raw chords filled her car, and for the first time that day, she let herself really listen. A small smile crept across her face. At the diner, Tim scrolled through his phone, a mess of missed calls and messages. One caught his eye, from an old friend in the business. "You said what a lot of us feel. Just hope it was worth it." He set the phone down, eyes fixed on the fading horizon. Worth it? He wasn't sure. But for the first time in a long while he felt he'd said something true. The road ahead would be messy. But then again, so was the music. And maybe that was the point.